Good evening, everyone. How's everybody doing tonight? Thank you for joining us. I have Chris with me today. Thanks, Chris, for coming on. How are you?
Not too bad, mate. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, man. Always enjoy having a conversation with Chris. He's been on the lane a couple of times, and yeah, it's always a good chat with him. But before we get going with the show, obviously there's been some very sad news today. I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge, the sad news about Jota and his brother Silva passing. It's shaken the football world, and our thoughts go out to friends, family, and everyone at Liverpool. We did think about maybe not doing the show, but I think sometimes, and we've kind of decided that talking about it can be a good through tough times. And look, we're here, a bit of a heavy heart, but if anybody in the comments, and if anyone wants to say anything in the chat, please feel free. And it's like moments like this remind us that life is much bigger than the game. But anyway, guys, thank you for joining us, and please feel free to leave your comments. Chris, any thoughts on what's happened?
Yeah, I mean, obviously condolences to all of Jota and his brother, their friends and family. It's an absolute tragedy. I always think that at moments like this, look, life is unfortunately, full of terrible things that happen to people. And it's full of heartache and horrible things happen all the time. I think it's a useful time for me when things like this happen, just to have a moment of reflection a little bit on your life and realize, try and be positive. None of us know what's going to happen tonight, let alone tomorrow. So just try and have a positive outlook on your life, guys, and realize that how lucky are we to be able to be sat here worrying about what's happening with Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. Like, it's such a minor thing in life that if you're watching this stream, or like me and you are able to come on the stream, our lives can't be that bad, right? There's got to be a reasonable amount of good in our lives that we can devote time to this. So when you look at things like that and his kids and he's just got married, like everything's just happened for this guy. Won the Premier League, won the Nations League, got married, got a young family, and just suddenly it's all gone, man. And I think just appreciate what you have in life and just realize what is good. We can all sit here and be sad about what we would want better in life, but make sure that you're grateful for what's good and hold on to it, mate, as much as you can. Appreciate it, because none of us know how long we're here for, right?
Definitely. Yeah. Good words, Chris. And yeah, you do. You have to live in the moment. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Yeah, very sad day. Very sad day. And yeah, thoughts go out to everyone involved there. Look, let's go to the chat and say a few hellos before we get going. Big up to Marius. How are you? Big up Dan and Chris, up the Spurs. Chris is saying hello back. Big up to Mark Taylor. Evening to you. Big up, Dan. Hope you're good. Razzle Dazzle. Good evening to you. Yeah, horrible day for football. That's right. It is, Mark. Am I saying hello to Chris? Scott M. Big up to Dan and Chris. Hope you're good, Scott. And Marius, rest in peace, Jota and his brother. Thank you. And Mark Taylor, we love the game, but life is so short and precious. 100%, 100%. Razzle Dazzle, 28, far too young to be taken, especially with such a young family. Yeah, I mean, pictures, the kids just got married. Oh, God, I know what they're going through right now. John the Fisherman, evening to you. Big up, Dan. And John the Fisherman says, how strange is it to be anything at all? And Mark Taylor, be nicer to your friends and family and spread love and peace. It's hard, but when they're gone, that's it. Yeah, thank you guys for your comments. Chris Fit UK.
That is my cousin who's deliberately butchering my surname there because he thinks he's funny. So don't say hello to my cousin. Let's move on. Ignore him.
Big up Scott M from Mark. Paul Brown, how are you doing? Good evening, Dan and Chris. What an emotional day. Thoughts and condolences to all concerned. And then Scott M says hello to Mark Taylor. So yeah, guys, tonight I haven't spoke to Chris for a while. I don't think I spoke to you since the whole final. Look, we finally ended that trophy drought. New manager in Thomas Frank, which we'll talk about. But I just can't shake. There's just a feeling that not enough will change. And we're going to get into it. We're going to talk about it. I think, that for me, obviously, people know how I feel about Ange. I think Thomas Frank was a good appointment. And, you want to hope, as fans, you want to start believing again. But there's just this feeling in the air and, frustrations, people, all about the transfer window. And look, it's not good because, we've won that trophy. We should all be happy for a while, but we're straight on the kind of thinking negatively about the club. And of course, there's reasons for that. But so tonight we're just going to break it down a little bit, and I'm interested to hear how Chris is feeling about Frank and generally what's going to happen in the summer regarding transfers next season, etc. We'll talk about that lingering doubt that most fans should have going into the next season. What must happen next in the kind of the transfers, and then really as fans, really. And there was a message in the kind of the intro about, it's okay to, feel hopeful for the season, but also kind of skeptical. And I think it's important as well because, we can all get very, very negative about the club. But we just won that final, and those players who've won their trophy, a lot of them their first trophy in their careers, and surely that is something that they can build on under Frank. So we're going to get into it. So Chris, how are you feeling after that final? I mean, you were there, you experienced it. What a day! Yeah, talk to us.
Yeah, I mean, it's just brought a smile back to my face. You mentioning it, Dan. To be honest. And I've got to be honest, I've flicked through my videos on my phone a few times and rewatched some of the stuff, and not the game because the game was atrocious. Let's be honest, but rewatched some of the stuff around it, the singing and the chanting and all that kind of stuff, and the aftermath of it. And it still gets me. It probably always will. There's still a bit of an emotional twang there. Feeling like I was there. I can't. It was amazing. It was brilliant. I don't know if I ever thought I'd have an experience like that with Tottenham. So yeah, the final was great. Unfortunately, there wasn't much unity even post the final, right? And I guess that's because the legacy of Ange is that you love him because he won the trophy, or you hate him because we finished 17th. It's very difficult. He's kind of polarized what's already quite a polarized fan base. So we immediately went into, is he staying? Is he not staying? Right. And I wouldn't say it was 50-50. And aftermath of the final, it seemed like it was more 75-25, 80-20 towards him staying. Me and you, I think, are on the same side of the fence, which couldn't really stand the thought of watching more of his football, to be honest. I think it was pretty atrocious. So I was pleased he went. I think it was the right decision. But unfortunately, even with appointing Frank, I don't think it matters who we appointed. We're still a fractured fan base, because I think what we've seen is a bit of a legacy of a lot of the real pro Ange fans of instantly, maybe it's a bit strong to say anti-Frank, but certainly not particularly supportive right from the very beginning, because they don't think Ange should have gone. And that's it's a tough play. We're a tough fan base to please. And the one thing I'd love him to do, we can reel off winning games, winning trophies, whatever. I just love him to bring the fan base together, however that's achieved, because the bits of it I have seen recently, I didn't get to the parade because I was still traveling back, but just that night in Bilbao, everyone on the same page, like, it is an amazing thing. And we are a massive football club. And when we're together, you see it so rarely in the stadium, but when you do see it and we're all together behind on the same page, like, the atmosphere in the stadium can be amazing when we're all pulling in the same direction. It's just very rarely like that, because we're always infighting, aren't we? Constantly.
Yeah, there is so much infighting amongst fans. It's been madness, isn't it? All last season over Ange and all sorts of things. But, that final, I mean, look, it was 17 years, and that kind of feeling when we won it, on the day I had a feeling that we might win it, but, to go on and do it, we're just not used to winning, are we? It just doesn't happen. You know, so many times we've got close but failed, and you just never believe it until you see it. But you know, if you think back now, that Man United team weren't great like us. And Ange on the day he got it right, didn't he? He had a game plan. It was tight. It was touch and go. It was like one goal, one shot on target, right? Wasn't it? So, but look, fantastic for us as
Well, I
fans.
think that's slightly debatable. What was it really one shot on target? I'm not. I've watched that back a million times. I can't see that he gets a touch on it, but we're not here to argue about that. So.
No, we're not. But I just think, as you know, as fans, like, oh, didn't we need that trophy? Oh, of any club, you know, we needed it, and it was just, yeah, it was fantastic. Whatever you thought about Ange on the day and what after the game, it was just, yeah, for, you know, thank you, Ange, for giving us that trophy. But you know, like you, Chris, I don't think he was the right guy to keep on. But then again, we all saw the reaction at the the party after that. Fans are kind of turned back towards Ange, and because he delivered that trophy, they wanted him to stay. And I get it. I do get it. Yeah, totally. He delivered a trophy. No one's done it in 17 years. And there was a part of me that thought maybe he will stay, because obviously we didn't get that announcement straight away. But look, they made a decision, you know, and they come out and said it's, you know, it's not down to emotions. You know, we need to be challenging across multiple competitions, which is true. And then there's the counter argument that, you know, what manager at Spurs has managed to win a trophy and, you know, get us up that league, you know, in that's kind of top 6 positions. We haven't seen it, have we, for quite a long time. So look, you know, Andrew's gone now. Frank is in, and Chris, was he the guy that you wanted, or you know, talk to us about how you're feeling about Frank coming in?
I mean, I'll be honest, I was so disillusioned last season. I pretty much got to the point of anyone but Ange. So I think just knowing that Ange had gone made me relieved. And I take no pleasure in saying that, but I can only be honest, and I'm not going to revise what my feelings were during the season. And I don't recall any time, and I have been unhappy, don't get me wrong, with other managers, but I don't recall a time like last season when I was actually beginning to resent going to games and going out of some sort of a sense of obligation. It was like a chore. The worst moment for me, I think, went to Liverpool and we lost 4-0 in the semi-final. That in itself wasn't the worst moment, but I remember a few days later driving to Villa in the FA Cup. It's only an hour down the road from me. And I just remember thinking in the drive, why am I bothering doing this? What's the point? And sure enough, we were crap. And I just don't want to feel like that, Dan. That's the key thing for me. We can talk about what's acceptable, where do you want to finish, how do you want to play. I just don't want to feel like that. Points, trophies, where we are in the league. I'm not that fussed. I just want to have some hope and optimism in my club. And I've got that a bit by Ange leaving. Would Frank have been my first choice? To be honest, I think for me, it was very close between some of those runners. So if it had been Frank, or if you'd have given me the choice and I could have picked anyone realistic, I probably would have edged to Glasner. Not a lot in it, though. So I'm more than happy to have Frank in. Iraola would have been fine with me. Almost any of them that really were being talked about at the time, I wouldn't have had any major issue. I'd have been less excited if it was Marco Silva, but I still would have preferred him to Ange, I've got to be honest. So I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic enough in the sense that I don't think we have a terrible squad. I don't think we have a great squad either. But I don't think we have a squad that should be finishing 17th. So I think it should be relatively easy for Frank to make us into a team that I can travel to watch with some hope and not just be thinking, I'm going to watch the same rubbish that I watched last week. We're going to concede the same goals. We're going to do nothing. We're going to have the same tactical errors. I think that will be gone. And to start with, at least, that's enough for me. And we'll see where we go. But I think we have to be realistic about where we are. I don't think it's a 17th squad, but people who expect him to suddenly be in the top 4 or winning leagues and stuff because what Levy said in an interview, it's just not realistic. Like, we're so far away from where we were under the Poch era of actually properly challenging for the league. or Champions League. We're miles away from it. So let's just have some realism in our expectations and see how he does in the first few months, and then we can reassess and see what's realistic from there, I guess.
Okay. So, yeah, you're okay with Frank, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're relieved that Angie's gone and we're not going to, you hope we don't see that, that amount of losses next season. And you can enjoy going back to watching Spurs again, going to the games. And, it was just, not good enough last season. Too many defeats. And I think it was like the record number of home defeats, God knows how long. And yeah, a lot of frustration, so much frustration week to week watching Spurs. Although, we ended in glory with the Europa League. So look, with Frank, and I get you what you're saying, that it's going to take a bit of time to, kind of get back to being a competitive team up that league. Believe us as fans believing in the team again. Have you got in your mind that you think, because we all know the limitations of the board, and we will be talking about that a little bit. Do you think, is it realistic to think that Frank can achieve anything like what Poch did? I know it's early. We don't know about the signings, etc., etc. What's on your mind about kind of early expectations for him, Chris?
I mean, that's got to be the goal, right? I feel a little bit for Poch, and that the people who kind of criticise him now for not getting over the line. All right, but we got really close, right? We got really close, and 90 minutes here or there, we could have won a Champions League, and the narrative would be totally different. So I think it's really harsh to write him off as a loser on the basis of 90 minutes could have changed that. But I think also at the same time, you have to recognise slightly that I'd love us to get back to that. I think it's harder than people think to get back to that, because those 2 seasons where we finished third and then second, they were seasons where most of the big clubs were going through sort of transitional periods. If you think about the Leicester season, Leicester were top, obviously. We were challenging for the second half of it, mostly in second. Arsenal just pipped us at the end. But Chelsea were nowhere. Liverpool were nowhere. United were nowhere. City were nowhere. They were all going through these really strange sort of seasons where they dropped off. And the next year, Leicester also dropped off. It's just unfortunate for us that Chelsea came back to a very good level. But the divisions are not like that now. All right, City dropped off a bit last year, but projecting forward to this season coming, it's not going to be a Leicester season. We're not going to see Bournemouth top of the league and then Spurs might come second, right? It's just not going to happen. These teams now, Liverpool, Arsenal, City, I think we can be pretty confident that they're going to be at least the top 3 of the top 4, right? So to get back to that sort of challenging with them, I think it's a longer journey than. But Poch maybe just.
When I said that, Chris, I didn't mean like next season is going to be.
Yeah, no,
like
next season.
I meant over kind of 2-3 seasons that Frank, if the recruitment's good or better, and Frank can improve that current crop of players. That is something, because there's too many teams ahead of us right now, isn't there? It's not even just the traditional teams. It's like, you got Aston Villa there, Newcastle performing well. So many teams who finished above us last season are better than us right now.
Yeah,
they are. And I just think that it's it's going to take time, but I don't have a lot of expectation next year, Chris. I don't. I'm not in this first season. Obviously, it could change depending on the transfers, but I mean, if we could kind of finish 8th, see progress, I just think that's sensible, right?
Progress is it, right? Because let's be honest, if Angie's era, if we could rewrite, say, the last 3 or 4 months and suddenly we picked up in the league and let's say we finished 12th, but the last 10 games, we won 7 of them, that might have swung me, because it's all about where are we going. And if he'd just shown an adaptability and he'd just shown actually we are improving, I could probably have got on board, but we weren't improving. We were going the other way. I know we won the league. So that's all you can ask of Frank is to improve, make us look like a team that's coached, make us look like a team that has units, like the back four. The notion of a back four has been absent during, and they look like a bunch of strangers to me that have been thrown on the pitch. And I just want to see them understand how they're working with each other. You're absolutely right. Like, this has got to be, I know a lot of Spurs fans are going to hate this, but realistically, we're so far away from being in that top 2 or 3. it's going to take 2 or 3 years as an absolute minimum if we got everything right to get back to challenging to that level. However, next season with a fair wind, I think it's reasonable to assume that one of the clubs who we expect to do well probably won't. There's normally one every season who drops down to a bit. So could we have a season like Forest almost had and be up there for a lot of the season? It's not impossible.
No, it's not.
I genuinely think we could, with a fair wind, be in that discussion for 5th, 6th, 7th with Newcastle and Villa. But if he does that, I think he's done well.
Yeah,
that's where I am.
I mean, and then there's the Champions League as well, Chris, isn't there? Which is going to be, a big strain on the squad. The level is completely different to the Europa. I mean, look, and that's exciting as fans. And I like Billy's comment in the chat here. Winning a trophy is optimism. Of course, it is. It's optimism. We've seen it.
The way I talk about that, Dan, is that people say absolutely everything. I don't view it like that at all. I view winning a trophy very much as a cherry on the icing on the cake, right? Yeah. But you've got to have the cake in the first place. You've got to do the work and you've got to have a good team. Then you give yourself a chance of winning things, as we did under Poch regularly. We had a chance. We didn't get over the line. I accept that.
Yeah.
But the actual winning of a trophy is a cherry. Last season, we've got to be honest, that is not a blueprint for a successful football club. Like no football club can succeed finishing 17th and expecting to pick off a cup every year. It ain't going to happen. Happens once every blue moon. We're lucky that it happened to us last season. But
I agree with that, Chris. I think what I meant is that obviously as a fan base, we've seen a trophy and that has given optimism. I think that's what I meant. I totally agree with you. I mean, look, good teams, if you look who wins these competitions, it's teams, good teams, right? It's the proof is there in the Premier League. Good teams win the cups. That's look, you get the odd win from Wigan, Portsmouth, etc. Us. So,
but look at again when we pick these out though, the teams who have sort of bucked the trend and won things when they've been low down, Wigan, Portsmouth, Birmingham, Leicester, where are they now? There's no continued success there, is there? Because it's impossible. You can't continue to win trophies and be 17th in the league. So you can pick off the odd cup. I don't think any of those teams are in the Premier League, are they? So that says something in itself, right?
It does, Chris, and also John the Fisherman. He talks about the losses in the London derbies this season. It was dreadful, absolute dreadful. And I'm hoping that Frank can get us some pride back in those games, especially against the likes of Arsenal, Chelsea, which we just lost. I think did we lose all 4 of them? I think didn't we last season? Yeah, so.
It's not the actually the losing, is it? It's not the losing. It's how you lose those games. I mean, obviously we don't want to lose them, but if you're going to lose them, at least go down fighting. And so often we didn't. Yeah,
that's another thing. I think some people don't talk enough about how bad we were in them games. They're so important to us as fans. Those, we always look when that Arsenal game is, when that Chelsea game is. We always look forward to that because it's just football, supporting Spurs, your mates, whoever you work with, the banter, you don't want to be coming into work with a defeat. And look, Chris, I think it's a good point. It's how we performed in them games as well. We just didn't do anything, did we? Really didn't. I mean, Chelsea, that game, the one at home where we started really well, and you're thinking, okay, Ange, now you just need to kind of tighten up a bit, sit back. And then he just didn't, did he? Just continued playing the same way. And Chelsea, and they, at that point, Chelsea weren't amazing. They had a new manager come in, but they just completely done us, didn't they? It was just embarrassing.
I think if you could get someone, let's say someone from another country came in, didn't know anything about last season's results for Tottenham, and you could just play the games to them, forget the goals, don't show any of the goals, so he doesn't know the results, he just sees the pattern of play, and tell me that is the basis for a successful football club going forward. I don't think anybody can possibly say that from the way we play, the way we were set up, our tactics, our in-game management, all of it. None of it passed the eye test for this is a viable strategy going forward. And that's why I can't get on board with people that say, oh yeah, but he won a trophy. I know he did. But if you actually just look at how we played, you've got to be honest and say there's no real evidence there that this was going to be successful going forward.
Yeah, for me, it was just too much of a risk having him start again next season and then giving him more players and. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not saying Frank's going to come in and solve everything. It's it's a step up for him. And I mean, if we go back to Frank, Chris, and what he's done at Brentford, what do you believe? And I know you've mentioned about kind of organisation and structure into the team. Is there anything else that you like about Frank and that you're looking forward to him kind of implementing into the team?
Well, I tell you one thing that I really like about him, that I've really begun to dislike very much about Ange, is just the way he comes across. It's a massive thing for me that when I'm listening to the manager of my team talk, I need to be on the same page. And when they're like after the games and when Ange's coming out going, we're outstanding. And I think, well, that's not what I saw. I begin to lose the faith in my manager then when he's saying things that I just don't agree with. And there's a lot of contradictions with Ange, right? So that's one thing I'm looking forward to. Hopefully a more, in my view, honest appraisal of our performances. I'm looking forward to someone who's not obsessed with little sound bites and quotes. I think Ange was pretty good for that, which is why the media loved him. But ultimately, it's no good. Like just stick to football. You're not there to impress the media or anybody else. Just be honest and open. I think he is. He's obviously got tactical flexibility. Struggled to get that out, which Ange just didn't really. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to seeing how good are half of our players, because I've got no idea, Dan. I've got no idea because I feel it's really harsh to judge most of our players on the last 2 years, even to the point where people say like Son's washed up. I can totally understand why people are drawing that conclusion. There's just this little thing at the back of my mind that keeps telling me, yeah, but he was playing under Ange. Like, I'd like to see him play under someone else, and the same for everybody else in the squad before I can fully conclude that, no, actually, I don't rate them.
No, I get that, Chris. Yeah, I get that. We don't know how good or bad these players are. I think they're not as bad as we've seen. Definitely not. And I think we need to have a look at them under a new system, more organised, better defensive setup. Not that silly high line, not the inverted fullbacks, players in their actual positions.
What's a massive contradiction is I look at our individual defenders, our back four, and think, yeah, you're a decent player. I'm not a huge Udogie fan, I'll be honest, but I don't think he's terrible. I think Porro's a decent player. Romero's very good on his day. Van der Ven seems decent, but they were terrible as a defence. So because of the tactics. So that makes me conflicted. Like, have we got a good defence or don't we? Because we seem to have good players, but we don't have a good defence. So I'm interested to see what Frank can do with stuff like
that. And how do you feel, Chris, about the kind of the step up for Frank? I think it's so good for him to take that step, because I mean, when we were talking about managers coming in, near the end of the season, with all the conversations about who's going to come in, and Frank came up in the conversation, and a lot of people think, oh, Frank's not going to leave Brentford. He's very comfortable there. But fair play to him for taking that, that jump and coming to Spurs. It's a totally different experience. He's obviously seen what's happened. I mean, he's coming into a cup winning side, and we're in the Champions League. But I mean, you know what Frank said, Chris. He's praising everyone, and I know he has to say all the right things. Praising the attack. I mean, I wouldn't go that far. I mean, he said we got a fantastic attack. Yes, we scored a lot of goals, but I get it. He's got to kind of get in their heads and make those players believe that they are good. So I totally get it. Maybe that's a bit unfair from me, but around that kind of Frank taking that that decision to do it. What do you think about that?
I have no problem at all with the step up. That's life. I mean, who do we think we are as Tottenham Hotspur, that we're going to rock up to a serial winner in the Premier League or Serie A or the Liga and just take their managers? It's just very unlikely that's going to happen. I mean, when we took Jose and Conte, it was because they were unemployed, right? So I've got no problem with that. And I think realistically...
But for him, Chris, as like that kind of, that's it could have gone anyway. Could have gone to another bigger club, do you know what I mean? But he's just decided to make that decision of jumping from Brentford, where he's comfortable there, isn't he? Yeah,
well,
have
to. The big question there for me is, I always think it's good that someone shows ambition and they want to test themselves at a higher level. I think that's a good trait. why is Tottenham the right move for him? Because we've all got a lot of questions about the way we are run. And I'm sure Frank must have the same questions. So we're never going to know the answer to this, but I'd love to know, in those conversations before he took the job, was it that he was reassured that it would be handled the right way? Or did he ultimately come to a position of, I either move to Tottenham now, and you never know how next season's going to go, right? Brentford could get relegated and all of a sudden he's not as in demand as he was. So maybe, how many of us in our working lives are going to turn down, get approached by another company who probably triples your salary? How many of us are really going to turn that down? So I'd love to know whether it was that and he just thought, that's too good an opportunity. Besides which, I might be out of work in 18 months with a huge payoff. Fair enough. Was it that, or was it that he genuinely thought this is the right place to match his ambitions? I'd love it to be the latter. I'd worry that it might well have been the former, but I guess we'll find out in due course.
And what about when, Vinay and Levy spoke and there was this interview process of 30 managers and he was the best? What's your thoughts on that?
I think similar to what you just said a minute ago about what Frank said when he came in, they're probably things that sound good and that they probably need to say to sell the appointment a little bit. I mean, who knows? Who knows? I mean, do we know who they're likely to have interviewed? I don't think we do. You can see why Frank comes across well, though. And in terms of what he's achieved, I'm fully on board that he's earned the right for a club like Tottenham. We're not an elite club. We're not one where you come in and you're expected to win every season. So we're kind of a logical step between a mid-table Premier League team and the very, very elite. We are usually in the middle between that. So it's a logical step. I have no problem that he's not won anything. He is at Brentford. We need to remember Brentford, by the way, who for most of my life have been like 2 or 3 divisions below us. So he's guiding them to best ever Premier League finishes, almost the best finish in their history, not quite, but almost. Yeah, of course, they're not winning anything, but there was a point in history where Guardiola hadn't won anything. There was a point in history where Mourinho hadn't won anything, where Alex Ferguson hadn't won anything.
Yeah.
All serial winners at some point hadn't won anything until they started winning. So give the guy a chance, see what he's made of. I fear for anyone joining Tottenham that the nature of this club makes success very hard. I'm not just meaning Levy in that, but certainly it's a big part of it. But look, I'm optimistic. I think the only way we can do it is the way that Poch did it.
Yeah.
Coach players, make them better, get in signings that, let's be honest, we didn't break the bank under Poch and bring in superstars. All the players that turned out to be superstars didn't start out like that at Tottenham. They might have been good players or very good, but they were coached to that level. I think that's what we've got to try and repeat, because that is who we are. We are not a club who's just going to go and pick out 60, 70 minutes. We're not going to be buying Declan Rice's. We're not going to be buying Zuba Mendes. We're not going to be buying Wirtz for Liverpool. I've worked on the pronunciation there, by the way. Wirtz apparently is. Thought I'd impress you with that. But that's not who we are, is it? We are buying from the next level down. I think he's a good contender to do that.
And there's a question about that interview I'm going to ask you in a minute, but let's just go to the chat. And I was just kind of looking at kind of what people think next season's achievable. Big up Brian. I think he's agreeing with Scott that this season, I agree that things currently stand 8th is where I see us. If Frank gets a couple of quality players, then 6th, but we all know that won't happen. So 8th it is. I get that. Totally get it. Let's have a look. Mark Taylor said Scott Miles better than under Ange. It would have been a disaster in the league and Champions League under Ange. I dread to think what had happened in that Champions League with Ange. I dread to think. Just a few hellos. Let's see if there's any other points here. Scott agreeing, yes, I think with Frank, 8th is most likely where I see us. We aren't getting the players needed for him to get any higher. And at this stage, we're not. So just going back to what I was going to ask you, Chris, about the silliness from Levy saying he wants to win the league, he wants to win the Premier League. I mean, I haven't spoken to you about your reaction to that video. Do you want to just tell us when you saw it, or your kind of...
Don't overreact to my very first line here, but I feel a bit sorry for Levy there because hear me out. I feel like he's damned whatever he does. right? Albeit that's kind of his own making that he's in that position. However, if he doesn't say something like that, people will come out and go, oh, he never shows any ambition. But now he says something like that. It's like, well, how dare he say that? I'm like, well, what do you want him to say? You don't want him really to come out and go, yeah, we have no interest in winning the league. You don't want him to say that. So I prefer that he did say what he did. I've been a critic of him over the years that he's never come out and said there is anything on field that he has as an ambition. So that's the ambition I want my owners to have. And he's not the owner, but the chairman to have. The crux is what happens now. So I get the frustration, totally understand it. And it's based on 24 years of being rubbish, right? And not showing that level of ambition.
Failure's not an option, Chris, he said. Failure is not an option.
I mean, it's been an option for most of the 24 years. I get it. I'm of the same view as everybody else. Like, I don't think it's going to happen. However, the fact that he said it has maybe just bought a little bit of time in my head and I'm not having a meltdown. It's 3rd of July. I think a lot of us are having meltdowns at the moment that we haven't got. He said this, 10 days, 2 weeks ago. Oh, well, what have we done about it? Like, all right, just wait a little bit. But if we get to the end of the transfer window and we haven't really made any attempts at all, and our best signing is Matisse Tell, there's just no defending it. But I'm willing. He's bought one more transfer window from me with that saying. So he's got another 8-10 weeks or whatever it is to back that up. And if he doesn't back it up, we need to hold him to account on it now, because he's never said it before. I don't think he's a stupid guy, Dan, and that wasn't a live thing. That was pre-recorded. So that's gone through his approval.
Chris, it was just like, for me, it's like, okay, but how are you going to do it? And Are you going to move away from the buying potential players all the time? What is the change? What about the kind of, because they keep saying that we have these events, we're putting the money back into the team. It was just like nothing, wasn't it? It was just all too kind of general, and you just don't believe it. If it kind of made sense, but it just wasn't enough. And I get that they can't tell us all the ins and outs, but I just think it was a little bit silly. Surely fans are not going to fall for that.
Well, we'll see what happens next. It was a bit of a soundbite without any structure or backup to it. I would like to know what the strategy is. I would like to know, like, are we at the point where he says, look, at the moment we can only add 1 or 2 big players, but in a couple of years, whatever, we'll start to compete more in the transfer market. Then I could get on board with it. Even if he's going to say the way we're going to do it is by investing in youth, at least then I know that, and it sets my expectations a little bit. So not having that information, we'll just have to see. Not having that information means the only thing you can judge it on is what actually happens. And therefore, you've got to assume that however, when the window shuts, what the business we have done is what Levy thinks is helping us close the gap, right? And that's what we've got to do. You've got to look at our competitors. If we're going to do that, you've got to look at Chelsea, Arsenal, City, Newcastle, Villa. They're all miles ahead of us, right? We know that. So if we're going to compete with them, we probably can't do that in one window, but we've got to incrementally close the gap, right?
So Chris, how many, I know we don't know, but what would you think, and what is realistic coming in this window, player wise, kind of ready-made players, whatever you want to call them, experienced players? How many do you think how many do you think we need? And I get that we can't do it all in one window. Yeah, it's got to be done over the next 2-3 windows. Realistically, do you see Spurs bringing in 2 of these players that could come into that first team, or is that expecting too much?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of what do we need to compete regularly with a City or Chelsea? We're miles away, right?
Yeah, realistically, just to kind of raise that kind of level of the squad to move in that direction.
So, I mean, if you did try and do it in one window, you're talking about at least 7 or 8 top players, right? So we're miles away. So what can we do this window? I think it would buy patience, a bit more patience from me, which is remarkable after 24 years of this, if we landed two proper players who are going to come. And I don't mean players who are going to come in and compete with the current players. I mean players that we're signing where we all go, well, they are clearly first names on the team sheet, right?
Yeah.
If we did that, and it was done in positions that Thomas Frank genuinely wants, like Jesus, how many more wingers are we buying and how many more centre-backs? Let's see a bit more squad management here. I think we've all been crying out for a defensive midfielder, right? Maybe he thinks we don't need it. I don't mind that. I think you've got to give him some time to assess the squad. But wherever he sees the gap, for example, if he comes in and goes, you know what, I really don't like Vicario. If he thinks that's a real priority position and we went out and spent 50 million on a keeper, like, oh, God knows we should have gone and got that Mamadashvili who's rocking up to be Liverpool's reserve goalkeeper. Like, I think don't get that. But if we got a player of that ability in to be our first, I'd back that. I'd back that and go, clearly Thomas Frank has identified. I don't care where it is. I don't care who he rates and who he doesn't rate. Wherever he thinks is important, let's go and get that. If he doesn't want Solanke and he wants someone up, go and get a striker. I think we would all say probably that we need a decent defensive midfielder, probably a left winger that can actually be effective, despite the fact we've got about 500 of them. That would probably be our view. But whatever Thomas Frank's view is, if he wants a new keeper, he wants a new centre-back, I don't care. But we need the top quality we can get, which is not going to be your elite players, but it's going to be, for us, it is buying your best players from a Bournemouth or a Brentford or a Palace, realistically, or going abroad and taking some players from there. So as long as we get in that quality, if we got two in, I don't even care where they are. I'm going to assume that they're the positions Frank wants. See what happens next. But I'm prepared to withhold judgment a little bit, whereas a lot of people very keen to have meltdowns right now.
Yeah, and look, it's quite normal, isn't it? To these meltdowns, it happens every summer, right? People. So say we were linked to Eze, been linked to Eze forever, but everybody's getting excited, and then we hear the news that we've stepped back, and then it's just like frustration. You see it, everybody losing their minds. They don't understand why, and then we move on to Kudos, and we don't know if any of this is true. Yeah. Just it's just through the journalists, people reporting it on social media. But I get that. I do get the frustration from fans of like, what is going on? Just Spurs go out, put the money on the table, and get the player in. But it's never that simple, is it? It's never that simple. Does they want to come? If Man City or Arsenal are in for him now, who's he going to choose?
Well, that is the thing. It's all very well, even with Eze saying put the money down. But realistically, the only players we can get in are the players who are not going to get offers from your Arsenals, your Cities, your Liverpool. So I think it's too simplistic. Let's take Eze. It's too simplistic to say we should have put in an offer a month ago and brought him in, because had we done that, Eze's agent straight on the phone to every other club going, Spurs are bidding this. Like, do you want him or not? Because they want to go to the best club they can go to. So we're only going to get in players where the answer to that question is Tottenham Hotspur. If that's the best club they can go to, those are the ones we can get. Unfortunately, probably your Eze's and players like that, as soon as Arsenal come in, we've got to be honest. I know we don't like it, but we've got to be honest. Anybody with a reasonable brain cell is probably going to choose Arsenal over Tottenham right at this moment in time. We just got to accept that. And then we've got to set our sights accordingly for who can we get in.
So yeah, just we'll go back to that in a second. And the question in the chat from Razzle Dazzle: how many defeats is too many for Frank next season? Now it's not going to go, plain sailing, is it? We're going to lose games, It's going to, as long as it's not 22. I mean, look, realistically, Chris, 12 games defeats. I see.
Well, you know what's going to happen in the first 10 games? The first 10 games is going to be absolutely full of, well, Ange did better than this. Yeah. Because the chances of Thomas Frank doing better in his first 10 games are very low, right? Very low. So we need to ride that out. Also be aware of his record when he took over at Bromby and Brentford initially was appalling. But I don't see it as a number of defeats, Dan. And it wasn't the number of defeats that turned me against Ange. It was the consistent manner of the performances week in, week out. Obviously, there's probably going to be a high correlation. If you're consistently crap every week, you're probably going to get beaten more often than not, which is what happened. But I don't view it like that. To answer the question, I can't give you a number. All I want to see.
What's acceptable, though, Chris? Obviously, like, you know, what would be just the figure doesn't have to be spot on. What do you expect?
I could. It depends how they're done. So I could take 14 or 15 if we started really badly and then we picked up, and towards the end of the season we were going like that. I could live with that. Yeah. If we started like Ange and we end the season with 10 defeats, but they're the last 10 games and we're looking at absolute shambles, I'll probably be furious about it. It's about how optimistic are we moving in the right direction? What are our chances of progression? And that's how I view it. So it's kind of hard to judge, really. Of course, you'll have a grace period early on where people aren't going to, your more calm, sensible fans aren't going to react too much.
I'm hearing that he has to win a trophy in his first season, and I just think that's just because of, you know, feelings of Ange still. You know,
would Ange have won a trophy if he was still here? I mean, he hasn't got the Europa League. We've got to be realistic about the Europa League and not knocking winning it. We started this with you putting a smile on my face by making me remember what it was like when I was in Bilbao. I loved it. But it's a second-tier European trophy, right? So I don't think that is diminishing what we did. We won a trophy, and we were were we the best team? But we won it. That's all that matters. But there was no evidence in that run that we were improving or that we were a team that was going to progress or that we could go and compete in the Champions League the next season. So it's disingenuous of the pro-Ange lot to now put that onto Thomas Frank when I don't think anybody could sit here really with a straight face and say Ange would win a trophy the next season. Very unlikely.
Look, I don't think the Ange chat is ever going to go away for a little while. I mean, he's going to be there at the start of the season, throughout the season. If Frank's not doing well, you know, it's going to come back, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Why did we sack Ange? If Frank's no good, he's not doing any better. But look, you know, we have to ignore it. We have to ignore it. Big up Jimmy. He said it only takes 2-3 years if we start bringing in quality players right now.
I agree.
That's the hope, isn't it? That, you know, if we do bring in those quality players, we improve over time.
Football can turn quicker than you think, Dan. I tell you, there are times when you see stuff like Man United now. I've seen people in the media go, they're not going to win anything for another 10 years. I'm like, what? Like, literally, football can turn very quickly if you do the right things for a couple of seasons. Yeah, so I agree with that comment completely.
Definitely. And Adam, big up to you. Plan A, Eze. Plan B, Kudos. Get ready for Plan C, boys and girls. Tyler dribbling. No, yeah. Like, I don't want to see any more. I want us to get the best business done. You know, the first team players coming in, and then if there's going to be any other kind of younger players, then it's got to be at the end, right, Chris? It's got to be kind of an extra rather than this is what we need now.
I don't actually think really anybody has a problem with all of these kids we've signed. The problem comes because you're doing it at the expense of signing actual team players who are going to go in the first team. That's when it's a problem.
Like in the summer under Ange, it's the same thing, right? Just all kids in Sri Lanka.
You know, the thing we'll never know is what the manager's true opinion is. So especially hard under Ange because he contradicted himself. So 1 minute he didn't want to bring experience in, then he's like, we need to go and get experience. So how happy was Ange with the signings? We'll never know. As much as I didn't like him, I would be very, very surprised if Ange, if he was honest, said, oh yeah, last summer, all I really wanted was Dominic Solanke, Archie Gray and Wilson Odebear. Like,
he said he was happy with it, Chris.
Was happy with that.
He said he was happy with it. But
he's got it kind of, hasn't he, really? I mean...
Yeah, he does. But he could have worded it a bit differently, I guess, couldn't he? He could have, been a little bit... I don't know. It's difficult. I get it. It is difficult. But that's just what we don't want to see, what happened in that summer. That, I mean, it was warning signals. I don't know about you, Chris, and obviously I hadn't spoken to you then, but at the beginning of last season... I mean, yeah, the warning signs were there, weren't they? When we finished that transfer window, it was just like disbelief. It's like, what is going on?
I agree. However, there was an awful lot of our fan base who were very happy with it. at the time. Now everyone goes, oh no, we all thought it was terrible. No, that's not how I remember it. I think there were a lot of people at the time who were going, this is genius, and Archie Gray is generational. And
yeah, there was that. People get carried away with these young players, Bergvall, Gray, Wilson, come out of nowhere, didn't he, that signing? And I think it was, we signed Wilson after we missed out on someone. Who was that player we missed out, Chris?
Yeah,
who?
Pedro Neto, who went to Chelsea, didn't he?
Zach, yeah. And then Wilson came in. It's just like, well, what are we doing here? Were we planning for a more experienced one, or were we just getting a youngster? I just don't know.
This is part of the problem, though, is because we hang off, because of what modern society is like, we hang off the words of these ITKs on the internet, most of which I think are probably not ITKs, right? I always find it interesting when I know we haven't actually officially done it yet, but it does look like we're going to sign this Japanese kid, right? No, not one ITK mentioned that in advance, though, did they? So how much in the know are they, really? I'm really very suspicious about it. But as fans, we just lap anything up. It's just the hope, isn't it? So when people put out that we're linked with Eze and we're linked with whoever, so last season Neto and Conor Gallagher, and it's just the hope of, oh yeah, maybe this time is the one where we'll get some proper players in. And in reality,
and you have to have hope, Chris. As a fan, you have to have hope. I get that. Yeah, you have to. It's football. You have to have hope, dreams, whatever. But us being a bit older, and I'm sure many in the chat as well, yeah, until they're holding up that shirt or there's a medical be done, fee agreed, it's just hot air, isn't it? It's just.
I do love the way a lot of these ITKs, who I think you can spot the ones who are completely talking nonsense, because they leave every avenue open for them to be correct. So it'll be things like Spurs have a strong interest in Eze and are considering doing a bid, but have other options they may pursue instead. I'm like, what is that telling me? That's telling me absolutely nothing whatsoever. We might get Eze, we might not get Eze, and whichever one, that guy will say, well, I told you I was correct.
and yeah, monitoring. We're monitoring.
Of course,
we've got other options. I think it's. I mean, look, I'm kind of very sarcastic about it all and just laugh at it, and I just see everybody getting carried away. And fair enough, if each to their own. You know, you can get carried away as much as you want, but don't then turn around and say, I'm so disappointed it didn't happen. Because this is the story of Spurs. Every summer transfer window is the same. It's rinse and repeat. Now, Razzle Dazzle's made a comment here, which, let's get into it a little bit, Chris. Okay. Compare our squad to Villa's and Newcastle's right now. How many of our players getting in their first 11?
So we're going to compare the squad of the European champions to teams that finished, fifth and sixth or whatever it was. God, that's a good question. I mean, Newcastle, I'm struggling really, if I'm honest, to think of any. I don't know how good a defender Mickey van der Ven is. I know how quick he is. Don't know how good a defender he is in a team that actually chooses to play a defence. So that's hard to assess. I do know how good Romero can be. I also know how infrequent it is that he's that good. So it depends how you judge it, because I think if you're just looking for what's their optimal performance, I think Romero probably gets into both teams. However, you can easily argue, yeah, all right, but A, he's hardly ever available, and B, he's only putting in, though, he puts in as many 2 out of 10s as he does 9 and 10 out of 10s, right? So I think
I'm with you. I'm with you with that, Chris. Yeah. Both of
them. I can't get out of my head performances like Leicester and Wolves. Like, he was absolutely atrocious at Wolves. So, I mean, he was brilliant in the final. Absolutely amazing. But I don't think managers generally like that, do they? They prefer players who are going to be consistently a 7 than one who's going to be a 9 one week and a 2 the next. So in that sense, I mean, Romero is definitely a contender.
Van der Ven is a contender, isn't he? I think I don't know if he'd start, but he'd definitely be in there. You know, I think he's a good player.
Who's that, Dan? Sorry.
Van der Ven.
I just don't know how good he is. Like, if they were going to play a high line, I'd be like, yeah, you've got to pick Van der Ven. I'm just not sure how.
And if you think of Villa's style of play, they loves that offside trap, doesn't he, Emery?
And in that system,
loves it.
he's brilliant and he shines. I'm not knocking him, by the way. I'm really hopeful. He's a very good player. I just don't actually know the answer. But Vicario, if I start praising Vicario a lot, then I've had a knock to the head or something. I can't get on board with Vicario at all. So definitely not. Porro, maybe. It depends, again, what system are you going to play, right? I think Porro's all right. I think misused a lot over the last couple of years, but probably most of our squad have been. After that, yeah, I can't really think of anyone else, to be honest. I mean, Newcastle got solid front line and their midfield's absolute beast.
Maddison.
Instead of who, though? Like, instead of Guimaraes or somebody for Newcastle, like, I think
the Newcastle midfield, none at all. But Villa, maybe.
Yeah, who's Villa's sort of creative midfielder?
McGinn.
Yeah, I mean, he's different. He's more sort of box to box, I think. So I'm not sure Villa really.
Got the younger guys, haven't you, running in? What's that young guy's name? Who's
Morgan Rogers.
Yeah, but he's a more of a kind of
I think Maddison's been inconsistent though as well. I think on his day, he's probably our best player, one of our key players in terms of if he doesn't create anything, we don't create a lot at all. But yeah, he's not consistent enough at the moment, I don't think. But yeah, I mean, those are the only ones you'd even have any discussion over. Maybe Maddison, maybe Porro. Romero and Van der Ven, I think you could have a decent shot. After
Solanke compared to Watkins?
No. Certainly not compared to Isak. That's definitely for sure. No, I'd have Watkins every day of the week over Solanke. I don't think Solanke's a bad player. He's not at that level.
I just think, Chris, it's so difficult when we've been so poor, isn't it, last season? And I think these players are a lot better than what we've seen. And I just think if say Frank does have a good first or second season and that we are kind of around those top 6-7 places, then the conversation's slightly different because obviously the output of the players would be better, the defending will be better, and then you could judge it more. But currently now, there wouldn't be many going into that side. But I don't think we're that far away to catch them. I think with the right disagree. And improvement, I think we can get nearer to them teams than the ones above.
I don't disagree. The problem with the question is you're asking to compare a team that has performed well below their standards for most of the last 2 years to two teams who are performing consistently well. So that makes it really hard to answer because, like we said, how good a player is how good a player are most of our squad? Another reason why I'm slightly more reluctant than most to write Basuma off because, again, I just think people say he's like rash, but I think under Ange's system, the one that always springs to my mind was when he conceded a penalty against Chelsea. But the way that we play, we're so chaotic when we lost the ball under Ange. And we don't really have a midfield because he wants them all to rush forward. So we lose the ball. There's no plan when we lost the ball apart from everybody just leg it back. So everybody's in like panic and desperation mode. So it doesn't then surprise me that Basuma slides in like an absolute loon because we're all running and we're all out of position and concedes a silly penalty.
And also, Chris, we saw the opposite, didn't we? We saw the complete opposite. Ange went in a complete opposite way, and then we didn't know how to attack properly. So it was like
one of my favourite. I will give credit where it's due to Sean Butler. He's the one I heard say this: Ange ball or Ange wall. And I thought that was about right. Our two tactics.
Adam says, I just want to see my team look like they know what they're doing. I mean, look, that is just shocking, isn't it? Like, we got that bad that we just didn't know what we were doing. It's just not good enough for us, is it? You know.
I think the players knew, Dan. I know they came out with all of this support for Ange, but that is what you should do when you don't know as a player what's going to happen in 5 or 6 years' time. You might be 32 without a club, and the only one who might make you an offer is Ange Postecoglou, you know? So why burn your bridges? Players don't come out and go, well, I'm glad that loser's gone. all this nonsense about, they're all going to be so unhappy if Angelique. Well, what's happened to all of that? I was waiting for all these transfer requests when Frank came in, but
yeah. Guys, please smash the like button. If you haven't subscribed, please do. Much appreciated. Hope you're enjoying the show tonight. Thanks for all your comments that are coming in. We're trying to get through as many as we can. But look, just kind of going back a little bit, Chris. We'll probably go on for another maybe 15 minutes or so. Just kind of summarising. So the doubt amongst the fan base is kind of like, the board's lack of ambition, just generally the last 25 years, worrying about the wage structure thing and the limitations, missing out on so many kind of better plays in the past. And the fear is it's just the same cycle repeating itself, just more false dawn sort of thing. And I think that's fair for us to feel like this as fans, because that's what we've seen. Now, obviously, Levy's come out and said we want to win the Premier League and the Champions League. We'll have to wait and see what this transfer window looks like. So it is the weight of a waiting game. Patience is required. Go and do something else this summer. Honestly, take up another hobby. Do something else. Try and distract yourself away from it, because I tell you what, we all get drawn into the kind of, on social media, YouTube, X, of all the rumors coming out, and we do enjoy it to a point, but we know it's not going to come true, most of it. So try and distract yourselves if you can. Well, I am anyway. But Chris, I guess you've got other things to do while we're in this summer break, right?
Yeah, I think mostly I'm not. I don't let myself get carried away with
cricket.
So, I'm not watching. I'd glance at the scores. I enjoyed the last Test match, but by the way that this one's going, I'm not going to be too worried about that. I just watched Jack Draper get beaten in Wimbledon as well. So, I don't know how well all the other English and British teams are doing, but the main thing is, Dan, it's not that I need to avoid it. It's just that I don't invest.
Chris, I'm only joking. I'm just like I'm messing about.
Yeah, but you're right though. People get too invested in it, and I just don't let myself do that. I read it and I think, it'd be nice if Eze signed, but I'm not going to pin my hopes on it because I've seen 24 years of it not happening. So.
I think we've kind of covered the board. Recruitment we've discussed. Key positions for you've already said. Anything else on your mind about Spurs? Any questions for me, or we can go to the chat as well and see what's going on in there. Any more thoughts about next season, Chris? And are you looking forward to it? What's your feeling?
I used to look forward to. I don't know. We're so far down this journey now of Enoch and being Spurs fans that I think when you get to our sort of age, I'll throw you in with me. I think it feels like an obligation almost. I love reading sometimes the comments that you get from some of the younger fans and seeing their maybe slightly naive optimism and how they love everything about Spurs and thinking, yeah, I used to be like that as well. But it's like a relationship you can't get out of, isn't it? So, I mean, I renewed my season ticket. I didn't have to do that. So am I looking forward to it? I'm cautiously optimistic that I'll get some more enjoyment out of this season than I did out of last season, acknowledging Bilbao, but the journey to that point of the season was horrendous. So I'm cautiously optimistic. But the main thing is, for me, my biggest concern is the fan base, Dan, like the constant, just the split between us. And are we Levy in, Levy out? Are we going to just start ripping Frank apart after 2 minutes because he's not Ange Postecoglou? That is what I find really tiresome. It would be great if we could get on the same page, but people who disagree with me and have different opinions will think the same thing, right? They'll think, well, why don't I agree with them? So that would be my fear for Frank, is that people turn on him. If we lose 4 of the first 5, I really hope we don't see like another Nuno and people just turn on him. I don't think
it's not too bad, Chris. The fixtures early on, it's not too bad.
I agree.
Some winnable games there. Home to Burnley on the first day of the season. Great. I mean, look, it's not going to be easy. Scott Parker.
But that makes it worse.
Record defensively, isn't he?
That makes it worse if we do start badly, right? If we'd have got Arsenal, Liverpool, City, like people might have had more sympathy if we start badly.
Yeah.
If we're starting badly against Burnley and Bournemouth and whoever else we've got, I fear for him. I'm hopeful, but I do worry. I think we all do. That is this club just doomed? Like this is just what it is, and no manager's ever really going to.
Chris, don't get me wrong. Like I'm with you. I don't have any hope until that Levy sells or massive investment comes in. I don't think much will change. But I think, look, after the season we've had, I mean, it's just kind of getting back to winning ways. You know, getting a bit more respect, stop the embarrassments, going into a game thinking that you can win it, rather than going in thinking, oh, it's another defeat. That's the start. And then from then, it's kind of like building, isn't it? Slowly building, seeing progress, getting some good results against good teams, seeing players improve. You know, I know it's basic, Chris, and I know but you've got to be realistic, isn't it, really? And I think as kind of my kind of goals under Frank and this board, that's just not very high. It's like challenge for Europe and try and win a cup. That's all we're going to do unless the transfer strategy changes massively. This is all we can do. Is that good enough? No, it's not. But realistically, what's been different over the past 25 years?
But that's where maybe people might get a bit frustrated with me if they say, well, what's success for Frank? And I will answer it in a slightly fluffy and tangible way, which is some of the things that you just said, which is, patterns of play and just looking like a team and just enjoying the football a bit more. Those are the things that are important to me. So I edge away from he's got to finish here, or we can't have this many defeats, or we've got to win or get to the quarterfinals of a cup or whatever. But I don't know for you if there's any sort of solid targets, or if it's more just around like enjoying watching your team play a bit more.
Look, again, as I said, I don't have massive expectations next season. It's just kind of get back up that league, be competitive in the cup competitions. I don't want to be getting knocked out against a team I feel we can beat. But it all depends on where the team's at under Frank, isn't it? How they have adjusted to his system, how the new players fit in. There's a lot we don't know right now. But look, it's kind of week to week. I'm hoping for more happiness as a fan. And look, and Chris, with you, and kind of around the recruitment, and I asked this question on the show on Tuesday. That say if the recruitment is not good enough again, do you think the protests will ramp back up for the beginning of the season?
I'd say the protests are a really interesting topic to me because I think they're in a difficult spot. I'm fascinated to see what support they get for the next one, or when the next one is. I don't even know, to be honest. But I fear we're going to see a significant regression in the numbers from what we saw at the two main ones last season, because I think it's so linked to results.
Yeah.
That I genuinely feel like, I don't know if they would have identified as Ange out people, but I reckon a lot of them were there just because we were crap. Whether they consider that to be Ange out, they were just unhappy with how the team is doing. So sacking the manager always buys a bit more time. So that usually...
And we've won that Europa League, isn't it? Fans have been crying out for a trophy and it's been delivered. Now, what's the buffer for some fans? Are some fans going to be okay now for the next 2, 3, 4 years? Do you know what I mean? Because we've actually won that trophy, are fans going to be more demanding of the board to kind of push on from now? Because that's what the board have said, isn't it? They said that. They said, look, we've won that trophy. We saw the reaction of the fan base. Now, we want to push on and we want to keep getting more trophies. That's what they're all saying. But, it's, action's better than words, right? From the board. So it's going to be fascinating to see what happens this summer transfer window, the next few transfer windows. And as you said, Chris, the reaction of the fan base, if there is a protest, what are the numbers looking like? Now, I'm still very strongly Levy out, so I will do my utmost to be there. And I'm still doing my own personal protest by not putting money into the club, because I just think it's a disgrace what's happened, over the last 25 years. I've just had enough of it. But that's me. Chris, might be slightly different, and other fans are. I don't know.
Well, this is the problem, though, Dan. Everyone's perspective is different. So, I firmly believe we need new owners. I'm more ENIC out than Levy out, because I think Levy is an employee and he's got a remit from the board. And if you replace him but don't replace ENIC, I worry that you just get Levy Mark II. So I'm not sure that solves anything particularly, whereas I think you need new owners. My criticism of the owners is based around the lack of ambition more than anything, the lack of willingness to. I don't think we should be reckless. And I think people who hold Villa up as an example is not great. Like your 96% wages to revenue ratio is a disgrace.
They're in trouble. They're in trouble, Chris. Do you know much about what's going on with them right now?
Not particularly. That sounds like news to me.
No.
No, I mean, I don't know what the situation is. I thought maybe you did, but
they're not signing, are they? They're not. They've got. I think they've got to sell, haven't they, before they bring any in? And
well, that's a good part of the reason why I think their gambles on Rashford and Asensio were based on they would only have become permanent if they got Champions League, right? So, but I don't think we should be reckless, and that, I do have some sympathy for. I've got to be careful how I word this. I've got some sympathy in the sense of it's not as easy as people think. Just go and splash all the money, and why don't they splash all them? Because there's no guarantees in football, and we're competing against teams who have. I'm going to sound like Sean Butler. Teams who have stolen a competitive advantage over the last few years by being state funded, and Chelsea have got a big. They're not now, but they've got a massive boost from that at a time when there was no consequence. There still appears to be no consequence, and we're trying to play by the rules, which. I've got a lot of empathy for that. I think it's a sensible way to run a business. Like, I don't want to see my football club go bust because we bought in ridiculous amounts.
Chris, as a fan, do you think that there is more money there? Do you think they're just being overly cautious? You know, what is the truth? I mean, I hear so many conflicting stories. I'm not great with finances. I've got to be honest. I'm not the best. And I'd rather somebody else talk about that. But on the kind of the look at it, the club is obviously charging a lot for the season ticket. They have all these events, all this money coming in. Obviously, I know the Premier League money was lower this year because we finished 17th. We've won the Europa League. I know it's not a massive winning, money coming in for that. But I mean, I just feel that the club could go more, up that wage structure, compete for better players. But then when I look at this comment from Razzle Dazzle here, he says, we trust in our scouts for the manager selection. The scouting is another area which I feel can be massively improved on to help us as well, and there are good players out there. There really are that could come into this side and improve us. We see other clubs in the Premiership make these signings and then they become, but Spurs don't seem to do it because if you think about it, who have we brought in the last couple of seasons? And you probably could go back longer than that. It's actually turned into a really good player that other teams want to buy.
Yeah. No, Romero is the only one who's got linked with anywhere, really, apart from... I don't think Saudi counts as a link, does it? Because they're people who just want to get players to raise their profile. It's not because you've got a great player right now, like Son has been a great player. I agree, though. My concern a little bit, and another reason why ultimately I think it's time for the owners to leave, very much including Levy. I do wonder if football as a whole now is a bit tired of having to negotiate with Daniel Levy. I can't believe that it's working for us as a competitive advantage anymore. I just think that going into negotiation with Levy and his reputation, if you can avoid it, you'll avoid it, right? Spurs come in and West Ham come in for a player. I can understand why people are going to go, I don't want to deal with him. He's screwed us over a million times and dragged the transfers out for weeks and weeks at a time. Let's just go and deal with another club or put the money down and we can have it done in 24 hours. And so I do wonder whether it's become a bit of a millstone around our neck as a club that
maybe a change is on its way, or we hope anyway. I mean, obviously that interview, they're making all these changes at the board level. Vinay's coming in. It doesn't look like he's going anywhere soon. There was rumours a few weeks ago that Levy's moving on, but that is not happening. I just want to bring up a super chat. Soul Boy, really appreciate it, man. Enjoying the show, Dan. Cheers, man. Thanks for always coming into the show and watching. I appreciate it. Thank you very much for the super chat. And I just want to go to a couple of comments in the chat. Let me just bring it up. There's one by Lynn. Don't know where it's gone now, but let me try and find it. What's Philly saying here? I'm a party pooper here. Here we go. Let's bring up Philly. So big up Philly. How are you? Party pooper, DANalyst. I wanted to see Ange in the Champions League. Daniel Levy came straight off Cobra Kai. Failure doesn't exist in this dojo, does. Philly, I ain't spoke to you for a while, man. We'll have to catch up because...
I tell you what, every football fan in the world, apart from Tottenham fans, would have loved to have seen Ange's Spurs in the Champions. I think it would have been extremely entertaining, apart from the fact that I'm supporting that team and it would be quite demoralising. But if you're not a Spurs fan, it would have been amazing to watch. Funny as well.
I found a quick comment now. Adam says, let's get behind Thomas the Frank engine. Look, of course, we will get behind all managers. We will, of course, we will. We'll get behind him. And, we just hope that he can, help us because we bloody need some. We need some kind of organisation structure into this team, defending, attacking better. And I'm sure he can if given a bit of time and with good players that he can do it. I think he can.
One of the things that gives me a little bit of hope is that he's brought a lot of his staff in with him, right? And I never understood that from Ange Postecoglou, to not have staff that come with you, because then when you do have Ryan Mason and Nick Montgomery and Matt Wells, who you've not worked with before, you have to then get them to understand what you want before they can tell the players. They've got to learn as coaches. I don't get that. We don't have that with Thomas Frank. They all know straight away exactly what we're trying to achieve. And I think I've never known it from another manager. I always thought it was really weird.
Yeah, it was strange, wasn't it? And remember Nuno, when he came in, he didn't take his staff, did he? And he
wasn't allowed to, which is a slight... he was told basically, look, you've got to work with Ryan Mason and whoever else. So, and
that did not help him, did it? It did not help him. And we've seen, look, I'm not saying he was the right man or the wrong man, but he didn't really get a really good chance. I mean, the recruitment under his window was just shocking. I mean, I think we brought in Romero, but we brought in the likes of, I think it was Gill. I mean, that transfer window was just so bad, weren't it? So, and Harry Kane didn't want to play for the club. Yeah. But and then we see Nuno now with Forest. He's done okay. Okay, they missed out on the. Did they even get Europe in the end, Forest? Did they miss out altogether?
No, did they get Europa? They're in the Europa.
Europa
League. I can't remember, but they're in. I think they're in the Conference League, aren't they?
Who's in the Conference League? I can't remember now. Did Villa? What did Villa got Europa League, didn't they?
Villa. I mean, I'm very. Anyone who knows me well will know my background and that I used to work for the FA in refereeing, so I'm very defensive of refereeing, but that decision that Villa got on the final day of the season was an absolute shocker. Absolute shocker.
Yeah, definitely was. Sorry, let's just read out. We'll go for a few more minutes. Lynn, I think Frank has come to Spurs because it's a bigger club, but it isn't the size of Man City, Liverpool, etc. Frank is in my humble opinion, has come to Spurs because he hasn't had to follow in the shoes of a SW.
I assume that's serial winner. I'm going to guess.
Winner. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, good comment.
Good comment.
Big up Norm 65. Big up to Brentford from where they come from. Yeah, I just think he's done very well. Look at the money they spend, the wages. They're like what's near the bottom in the Premier League, and Frank he made them competitive. They beat big sides, but where else could he have taken Brentford? Where they were is.
Just look
at overachieving, Chris, right?
The same thing I said before about, let's get someone in who knows nothing about last season and don't show them the goals, just show them how Tottenham play. Just look at how Brentford play and how they've improved, how those players have improved. I think that shows you what you need to know about his abilities as a coach. Like, can you imagine the meltdown in our fan base if, I don't even know how long it was ago, 2-3 seasons ago, we'd have signed a player called Johan Visser. Like everyone would have been, who the fuck is this guy, right? And you could apply that to almost all their signings, but they've turned into players that we look at now and go, God, I'd love him in the team. And who'd ever heard of Brian Mbeumo? But look at him now, we'd love him, wouldn't we? So, yeah, I mean, someone who can improve the players, because we're not going to be buying in players generally who are competing at that level. We're not going to be shipping them in. We have got to develop them. I know. It's not what everyone wants to hear, but that's the reality of it. We've got to do what we did with the likes of Alderweireld, right? He was a good player, but he couldn't get in the team at Atletico Madrid. Had a half-decent season at Southampton. We bring him in and we turn him into a great player. And we did that with a lot of players, and that's what we've got to do again. That is the only route. So I've got some sympathy when we're signing some of these lesser-known players, because hopefully they will turn into the next Mitoma, right? That same team that we've got this Takai from was where Mitoma was. They signed for like £3 million. So I'm hopeful we can do that, but our track record isn't good, does it? It doesn't give you any cause for optimism, particularly, sadly.
No, that like I said a little while ago, the kind of scouting has got to be much, much better, isn't it, really? I wonder what Frank's input will be in that. Maybe there's players that he knows that, could come to Spurs. I don't mind one of them type of players, Chris, as long as we get those first teamers and then Frank identifies a player that he feels can make an impact on this team and that he can then push to the next level. I'm okay with that because he's done it for Brentford. But I don't want all of that. I want to see a couple, at least, Chris, two in this window. I mean, that's realistic. Chris, I'm just going to close down in a moment, but is there anything more you want to say towards kind of maybe the fan base? Any kind of, I don't know, like I said at the beginning of the season, it's okay to be hopeful, but again, we have to be cautious and, skeptical, of course, at the same time. Kind of leaving it on that note whilst we're in the show. Any kind of final thoughts from you, Chris?
For the fan base, I think, can we just not turn on each other quite so much? Like, it's okay to disagree, but the level of kind of, what's the word? I don't know what the word is, kind of venom almost between different points of view. We just need to calm down a little bit. And linking to the very start of the show, right, that there are bigger things in life than football, but I'm not trying to downplay anyone's passion. It's really important. And we should disagree. Everyone's entitled to their own view. But when we get to the point where we're goading each other and we're trying to rile each other up and we're trying to embarrass the other, we're on the same team ultimately. So I just like to see that calm down a little bit. I'm not saying change your view, but the level to which that gets, I think it gets a bit out of hand as a fan base. And let's just, I don't know if my dog is progressively snoring, has got progressively louder. I don't know if you can actually hear that.
I can't hear it.
That's good. That's good. Gosh, she is getting very loud. Maybe that's me driving her to sleep with my views on Spurs. But
Chris, while you talk about the fan base, do you think that things will settle down now that, because a lot of the arguments were around Ange, right? Last season, it was relentless. Yeah. Angie and Ange out debates. Oh my days. It went on and on and on and on. It's still going on a bit now. Do you think that it will move away from that eventually if Frank is doing okay?
There's only two ways I think I can see that happening at all, really. One is that Frank smashes it at the park and we have something akin to the return to the Poch days of competing. I think if we were doing that, we're playing at that level, even if we weren't winning, I think the whole narrative of Ange's a winner and it's all about trophies, I think that would die down if week in, week out, we were playing really well and beating good teams and we were competing in the Champions League. So that's one way. That's a very big ask. And the other way is probably an even bigger ask, which is if ENIC leave and sell up. You have a grace period then, like you do with a new manager. You'd have a grace period with the new owners. But it's not a guarantee. Let's just, I think we're at the point where if you offer me the opportunity, say, look, leave it, ENIC can leave next week, you don't know who's taking over. I think we're at the point where that's worth the risk. But there is a risk that they could be even worse owners, right? I think we've just got to be aware that getting rid of ENIC doesn't automatically mean we're going to get owners who are going to throw money around and we're going to start competing at the top end of the table and bringing in superstars. So, but those are the only two ways, Dan, aside from that. So do I think it will happen? No, I don't think we'll come together as a fan base because I don't expect Frank to smash it from day one. And I think there'll be a lasting legacy of this. And
what's Frank ever won? This is what I hear. What's Frank ever done We're getting rid of a winner in Ange. Wins everywhere he goes in his second season.
The thing with football, though, and this is one of the things that frustrates me, is so many people need to boil it down to a binary. Like, Frank's a loser, and sorry, not Poch. Ooh, Poch is a loser. Ange is a winner. But it's a little bit more complex than that, isn't it? And Ange is a winner. I mean, we could get into all of this, but Poch also got knocked out by Genk or Ghent or whoever. I remember I was at the game. Yep. It was horrendous. But at its best, we were competing and beating Bayern Munich and Real Madrid and Man City and teams like that. So what do you want? Because for me, that is more of that's what I want my team. I want my team to be competing at the top level. Is it better to be winning at a lower level than it is to be not quite winning, but competing well at a top level? Unfortunately, some people, there's no agreement. There's no necessarily a right or wrong, but I do kind of think if you're not bothered about the level of competition we're in, we might as well just enter the Johnson's Paint Trophy, right? Or the local Sunday Cup, because a cup's a cup and it doesn't matter who you're playing. Well, I kind of think it does matter who you're playing. And ideally, I want us to be... Again, I'm not knocking it down. I was there. I loved it. I loved it. So I don't want people to misrepresent that Chris doesn't want us to win trophies. If we're in the Europa League, let's win it. I'd rather not be in the Europa League because I'd rather be in the Champions League because we're an elite club. That's where I want us to be. But we're a mile away. We've just got to be honest. We have absolutely dropped the ball probably since 2018, because 2019, all the signs were there that we were a team on the way down. We happened to get to a Champions League final, but all the signs were there that we were a team getting worse. So we probably peaked 2015 to 2018. We went like this.
Yeah.
And since that point, we have got slowly worse, then catastrophically worse. And we happen to win the Europa League as part of that. But we're miles away.
It's crazy, isn't it, Chris? It's madness, isn't it? Of all managers to do it, all seasons to have, we win a trophy. It's just...
I love the fact that our last three trophy-winning managers are George Graham, Wendy Ramos, and Ange Postecoglou.
What does that tell you, though, Chris? Because, what does that tell you? Is there anything into that, or is it just situational?
What it tells you is that football's not a logical game, right? It's not. Yeah. The team under Graham was crap, basically, but we won a trophy. Ramos was a bit unfortunate in terms of, again, our business dealings, right? We sold some of our best players from underneath him, but he was the wrong appointment, really. Like, you're going to appoint the guy. I know he did well with Sevilla, but you're going to appoint a guy who can't speak a word of English. He's up against it from the start, isn't he? So it just tells you that football's not logical. And that's what causes the debate, right? Because if it was black and white and this is just the formula for success, there'd be no argument about it. You'd either be doing it or you're not doing it. But, was last season a success? I mean, it should be a question with an easy answer, but it's not at Tottenham, is it? Yeah, it was. Of course it was a success. We won a trophy. Of course it was an out-and-out failure because we got the lowest we've ever been in the Premier League. So... unfortunately, you have that, I think it's called cognitive dissonance, isn't it? Where two completely opposing opinions, you kind of hold them at the same time. It was a dreadful season, and it was a good season as well at the end. That's what Tottenham does to you. You don't know what to think, do you?
No, the roller coaster continues, the drama. Supporting Tottenham Hotspur, never a dull moment. Let's hope for better times next season. But guys, look, we're gonna close down the show now. Again, our prayers and our thoughts go out to the family of Jota and his brother, friends, and Liverpool fans or whatever. Look, sad day. But I hope guys who's watched enjoyed the show. Big thank you for Chris for coming on. Thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. And if you haven't liked the video, please do. If you haven't subscribed, please do. And look, I'll be back next week with another Inside Spurs Mind. I'm working on the next guest, so hopefully there'll be something out very soon. Anybody in the chat wants me to have a particular chat with anybody on YouTube, please drop it in the comments. See who you want me to talk to. I've done 3 of them so far. Been very interesting. But one theme and a couple of comments I've got to get back to in YouTube is that all 3 of the guests who's come so far has wanted Ange to stay. All 3 of them. So yeah, wonder what the next one will say. But guys, yeah, it's been a good little show. But anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and as always, come on, you Spurs.